Okay, hope everybody can hear me on Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first presenter for Breakout Session 1. This is the transition track. Jessica Garrett is with us today. She is a doctoral researcher and also a Region 10 consultant focused on inclusive practices that optimize specialized instruction and promote universal design and MTSS systems that advance student performance and growth. Her background encompasses 20 years of service in special education and educational leadership. Mrs. Garrett's current doctoral research is on the impact of enterprise learning and performance improvement across the educational landscape. Jessica began as a community education coordinator on the south side of Chicago, focusing on student and family access and inclusion. Moving to Texas, she helped to establish the largest charter school district in the state as the coordinator of special education, Section 504 in dyslexia. Mrs. Garrett's career continued as she's held positions as an elementary assistant principal, a special education assistant director, and she is currently Region 10 consultant with inclusive practices. She has a master's certificate in leadership studies from Yale University, a master's degree in educational leadership, and is completing a doctoral degree in educational leadership. We are so happy to have her with us this morning, so I will turn it over to her. Thank you.
That made me sound a lot smarter than I really am. In fact, I have a paper that's due and I had to write it down to remember that when I get home, I need to finish my paper. But anyway, so we're going to jump into, and I know there's folks online. I can't, let me pull up now. If I pull this up right, I can see.
You can see anything on there that you normally would see on a Zoom.
I see the chat.
But to move your PowerPoint, you're going to need to use this one here.
Okay, so I can see all that here. And then also Sarah is helping with questions that come into the chat and things like that. So not to forget all of the folks on Zoom. But what we're going to talk about today, we're prepared for talking about college preparedness and thinking ahead. And as we're kind of moving through that, I want you, if you have questions about how that applies to your situation, if you have a child that is an ECSE or elementary or middle school, those are great conversations to go ahead and start having now. And then there'll be a chance at the end where there's an activity that you can choose to do and work on when it comes to accommodations for post-secondary. You can do that, or we can open it up and have a Q&A session. Does that sound good? Okay, perfect. Clicker. We can better get it quicker. Did I do it right? See, I didn't even do it right. Which button do I push? The forward button? Should be.
We didn't test this. No, we didn't. No, you can't. I'll just flip the slides for you.
You can't? Okay.
I will flip
Next
it.
slide.
I will be your person.
Here we go.
Well,
Amy and I office next to each other, so we're just, we're always like this. Okay, Lauren Estegaldo is my other partner in crime. She's not here today, but she's also part of our inclusive practices team. She focuses on inclusion, standards-based IEPs, as well as state testing. So all this fun STAR stuff. And Amy does sit right next to us, and she's our transition piece. And so we all three kind of work together throughout the year. Oh, next slide.
It's working now. Now you don't have to next slide yourself.
Okay, so here we are. We're going to think ahead. We're going to talk about accommodations and think about future goals and have Q&A. Okay, at any point in time, please do feel free to interrupt and say, that's great information. How does that apply to me? Here's my situation. Okay. Okay, this was an interesting statistic I pulled up. There are 3.7 million students who are entering post-secondary life, whether that's in a transition program or that's a college or university every year. And this was actually pulled pre-COVID. So within about the last 5 years. So there's probably even more than that right now. I just thought that was a really interesting statistic. So thinking ahead, high school or post-secondary. On your desks, this is really interesting. And folks on the Zoom, you're gonna have like a little 2-minute break here, and then you're gonna come back around and share the information with us. But on your tables, you have these little paper clip things here. Go ahead and open those up. And if you don't have them, there you go. But what I want you to do is open them up, read them, and you're going to separate them into 2 different categories. One category is going to be, let's say public education, pre-K through 12 accommodations. And then your other category is going to be college university accommodations. And I just want you to see the difference in this, and we'll talk more on it. Sweet little lady. You know, she'll fret over everything.
I think everybody gets one thing that they feel like they won the lottery on, and that's my mother.
That's
I won the lottery. I mean, you're great too, but.
You're great too.
Guys.
She cannot. One more.
All right, that's the last one I can give y'all. I don't know it's now. She's gonna take back over.
Okay, so the big thing about this activity, and we're gonna go through and reveal them all here in just a moment, was that actually when I was going through some of it, I didn't realize how different things would be for our students. And so the kind of the underlying theme, we're gonna watch a few videos and have more conversation, is that no matter how young our students are, our goal needs to be to teach them on their own how to accommodate themselves and have their own voice. Because as they're getting older, we'll see after you graduate, or even after post-secondary, you're on your own for what you need. And so the sooner we instill that in our kiddos at age, you know, first, second, third, fourth, fifth grade, the better they're going to do as they transition and progress, even through those transitions in, you know, elementary to middle to high school. So, okay, so let's see who was right. Oh wait, clicker. Okay, high school students receive SPED and related services to address needs based on an identified disability. Formal special education services are not available. I didn't actually know that. I just assumed that there was something there that they would just have to plug into. In fact, my husband and I had a huge debate about it the other night at dinner. We were talking about it. He was like, "Oh, I was Arizona State. They have a special ed department." I'm like, no, they don't. He's like, no, they do. Google it. I'm like, I Google it. I'm like, sweetheart, they have a degree department that you can get a degree in special education. That does not mean that there's a teacher in there that's going to provide special education for a student. But he was still very proud of his college, so I let him win. It was fine. So students are protected under IDEA and FAPE. Once they go on into post-secondary, whatever that world might look like, that's going to switch to Section 504 ADA, and there's a new one. It's called Section 508. That is a really fascinating new piece of legislation you might want to look at and research. There are actually some conferences going on the next year that we're going to be attending to get more information about it, because it is a newer area. It talks about the technical side of things and being able to have, for example, if your student is in a college class and the professor's presenting a PowerPoint presentation or doing anything like videos, technology, anything like that, what is under Section 508 to ensure that your student or that child can access the information, closed captioning, all of those kind of things. So there's like a whole other area that they're coming out with. But I get to skill up on and hopefully present maybe even this time next year to you, because we'll know more about it. And then ADA, that's something as well to really pull up, read, and understand. ADA also applies once you're getting into high school. So, or even depending on your child's situation, physically, that is also something that will apply. That also applies if your child's working. So if your child's going to have a job at age 15, 16, or 17 while in high school, ADA is something that you're going to want to pay attention to as well, because their employer has to ensure that as well. Okay. Districts are required to evaluate and identify students. Okay. Students are responsible for disclosing documentation of a disability for each accommodation requested. So you don't get just to go and say, here's my FIE or my doctor's note that says I have this, or this. Here's my list of accommodations. They're going to say, well, we'll do this accommodation and we'll agree with this accommodation. They don't have to provide all the accommodations. That's where it goes back to teaching our students now maybe more accommodations, ECSE pre-K 1, 2, starting to step back, less accommodations. What are we really needing to have accommodated when we're thinking now and for the future?
Additionally, I would add to that, making sure that your student is requesting their accommodations instead of it just being sent to the teachers, having them learn to go into their teacher and with their accommodations and say, I need X, Y, and Z. That's going to help them to be more successful when they get to college and they have to start requesting those themselves, because you as the parent don't get to do that for them. They have to be the one that goes to the accessibility office and asks for those accommodations.
Well, and also it goes to accommodations are not made without proof of a disability. So your students will have to learn how to access their records and keep their information current. For example, you're not going to take an FIE that was done when you were 10 years old to college and say, oh, there's a 10-year gap, but here's my disability. They won't accept that. It'll have to be current. Yes.
So you gave the idea that if you have a letter from the doctor and the recommendation for the accommodation, the school doesn't have to do all that?
Not if it's college, university.
Okay. So for the school, yes.
Yes,
For college.
Yes, for districts are required to evaluate and identify students.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay, services included individually designed instruction, modifications, and accommodations, whereas in post-secondary, it becomes reasonable accommodations. So here's my big plug. My big plug is that once your student enters special education, your ultimate goal is that they transition out of special education with, I would say, at least 1 to 2 years in high school, where they may fall under more of a Section 504 plan. Section 504 language is that language, reasonable accommodations for access. By that point, you've worked with your child, with your students, so that they understand their disability, they understand their barriers, they know the accommodations they need. They may no longer require specialized instruction, but they do need accommodations. Okay, they do need some sort of support. That's where Section 504 will cover them and best prepare them for college and post-secondary. Does that make sense? Like a big world circle. And sometimes I understand that right now that might feel and seem impossible. I have a child that seems so impossible with right now, and he's in 3rd grade. But as I'm trying to build some things into him and teach him some things, even my daughter, who transitioned in 4th grade out of special education before she went into 5th grade, I really pushed back on my campus and said, my daughter needs dismissed by 4th grade. I don't care what you do, but you need to do everything possible to make sure that she can be successful with only accommodations. I had to push hard, and I knew my stuff because that's 22 years in this world, you know your stuff. But she did. She transitioned out, but now she's in 5th grade, and she will come home with a binder full of like multiplication charts, formula charts, spelling lists, you know, common missed fractions and all these things she's doing now. I mean, she's doing it on her own, but it's only because I pushed back with the campus and we all worked together as well to get her there. Now, when she was in 1st grade and 2nd grade, even kindergarten, rolling around on that carpet, you know, it seemed impossible. I thought, no way, she will never get there. But the earlier we're intervening, the sooner they're getting to where they need to be. Okay. I saw you were kind of shaking your head like, seems impossible. It's possible. It's possible. Lots of hard work though. So that's where your switch comes. It's more of a reasonable accommodation versus requirements. Okay. Individual students' needs based on the IEP, no formal program or support or personal care. If your child's in life skills, they're not going to get those personal care things that they need. There are other resources and avenues to access those as they get older. But again, that should just be motivating you to say, hey, we've got 18 years. There's a reason why we have 18 years. I think I explained this to my husband. He's just so funny. I'm like, we have 18 years to raise kids. Okay, we're not going to raise them all at age 8 and be done. Like, we're raising adults. And so that's where, as you're knowing these things, looking ahead, giving yourself a little bit of a break, You've got 18 years to get there. So think about the things that aren't going to be there, like the personal care and formal program support. Progress toward IEP is monitored and communication. You have the art committee, you have the 504 committee, you have a team. Whereas you go to college and students are basically required on their own to figure it out. So what's that going to look like? What kind of team, by the time your child's in high school, what kind of team do you want to start to have in place for your kiddo? Do they have a counselor outside of school? Do they have a therapist of some sort? Do they have a tutor? You know, who's going to be their team as they're moving on outside of high school? And having those people in their life sooner rather than later so they can help them progress. Ooh, I have 2 periods there. That's not good. Teachers are responsible for informing students about changes and updates, the class contents and schedules. Students are responsible for on their own. If the professor wants to change the syllabus, he can. He doesn't have to tell anyone else. He doesn't have to tell the student. You just show up to class. This is what we're doing. I don't have to give you an alert. That's where it goes back to your student being responsible as they're approaching middle school and high school. What should their days look like? My son, he's 7th grade. Great kid. I got so lucky. I don't even know how I got so lucky. Such a great kid. I got a long email from his teacher about all of his missing math assignments last week. I have no idea. I just was assuming he was bringing all his math assignments. Anyway, I let him know that it is now your responsibility to turn those in. Oh, well, it's on Google Drive and it's so confusing in Google Classroom and I have all the assignments and I can't hit the button. And I'm like, Jack, I'm sorry. This is on you. You need to turn all these in. And he did. I checked in with him. He's also, my oldest is also doing golf. He loves golf. He's obsessed with it. And so instead of opting for athletics in school, he opted to do athletics outside of school and do golf. Well, I don't have time to manage that. So Jack, I love you. I'm going to be fully supportive of whatever you want to do, but this is on you. You have to get a coach. You have to find where you're going to play. You've got to enroll in your own tournaments, and you have to keep track of your hours because it's your grade. He failed first semester. I let him fail on purpose because now he is so motivated to make that happen and to make it right. So it's just, what do we need to do now so that our students, and he's in 7th grade, you know, he's not in high school. So this was like his first kind of real awakening, like, oh my gosh, I better start taking responsibility. So be thinking about that. And I know, again, it might seem impossible, but we'll get there. And have a team for you as well to get there. Okay, just a reflection. The better prepared you are, the easier it will be to be successful. Getting prepared for your student may involve good study habits, exploring your educational options, thinking about a career field. I have 3 kids, with 3 kids, all 3 very different kiddos. They all 3 have very different study habits. And they all, even in elementary, middle, and high school, not high school, I'm sorry, elementary, intermediate, and middle, they're all 3 in very different places. They all 3 have very different learning styles. I have actually considered moving my daughter to a different school that might be a better fit for her. So our carpool is insane every day because they are all at 3 different schools because they all have 3 different needs. But sometimes that's what we have to do as parents, kind of looking at their options. Putting those good study habits in place, even at an early age in K1, okay, even if you have like a little 3 or 4-year-old, there are things you can do by creating a schedule at home that they can start to follow. So they can kind of create those good habits, okay? And of course, responsibility and advocacy. Instill that in your children. Even if they're little, advocating for what they want to eat. Like my kids for Thanksgiving, like they're not gonna eat it if I make it. So I made them advocate, well, what would you want? Well, what does that look like? You research it, tell me about it, sell it to me, make a PowerPoint presentation. They did, they chose Dickie's barbecue. They literally made a PowerPoint presentation. Like it was darling. It was like 3 slides. It was totally fun. But stuff like that, but that's also fun too. So, okay. I'm gonna play this quick video. What time is it? We've got 30 minutes. Okay. This is specifically about transitioning to college. I think it's a good video, so that's why I'm playing for you real fast. No,
No, I got
you
you.
just do it. Okay.
Let me just.
And you got to turn the volume up a little.
Hey,
Hey,
what's going on?
I've got good news.
Oh yeah, what?
I just found out that I got a scholarship.
Cool, for what?
Yeah.
Well, duh. Congratulations.
Thanks. What about you? Where have you applied? Have you heard anything?
You know.
What news?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
What?
I mean, I may not go to college.
Why not?
I'm just not a good fit for college, that's all.
Why? You'd be great.
No, you'd be great. I mean, come on, think about it. I'm not that good of a student. And besides, in college, there's a lot of reading. I hate to read.
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter. You're smart. You should go.
I don't know. Hey, is this your car?
No, it's my mom. She let me drive it today.
Oh, cool.
I'm serious. You should think about it.
Can I tell you something just between me and you?
Sure.
Now, not a lot of people know this, but I have a learning disability.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's why I'm probably not going to college. I mean, it takes me twice as long to read everything. So I don't know.
You should talk to my brother.
Which one?
James, he's a junior at state.
Oh yeah, I remember James.
He has a learning disability too.
No way.
Yeah, he does.
I didn't know that.
That's because he doesn't like to talk about it either. But he'd talk to you, I bet. He would. You should talk to him. He knows what it's like.
I'm not gonna lie to you, college is hard. I couldn't do it without my accommodations.
But you can get accommodations, right? Like in high school.
No, not exactly like high school. It's a different process.
Okay, so how does it work? Do they ask about it when you apply?
No, you have to contact the DSO.
What's that?
Oh, the Disability Services Office. That's what they call it here anyway, but
It's
every campus has
accessibility
something
office
like it.
now.
It's the office that handles accommodations for students with disabilities, as the name implies.
Okay.
Yeah, they can help you out. There's this whole process you have to go through of describing the disability, providing documentation to prove that you have it, that kind of thing. And you have to provide this stuff, not your parents. And once you have all that, they decide if you're eligible.
Why wouldn't I be?
I don't know. It's a case-by-case basis kind of thing. And whatever accommodations you're getting now aren't necessarily guaranteed in college.
Why not?
Well, I mean, don't worry about it too much, but go talk to them first. You know, you should, like, be able to answer some basic questions. Like, what's your disability?
Well, duh.
Yeah, not a hard one. But how does it affect your learning in class, when you're studying, when you're doing your homework, when you're trying to finish in-class assignments and tests?
Okay, what else?
What kind of accommodations have you had before? What's worked and what hasn't? You should be able to answer any kind of questions like that before you go in and talk to them.
Okay.
You overwhelmed?
Yeah, just a little.
It's really not that bad. But it's not exactly simple either. I mean, it would be great if you could just say, I'm disabled, and they're like, here's everything you need. But it just doesn't work that way, you know? You have to prove that you're eligible, you have to provide current documentation. They're pretty thorough, but it's not impossible.
Okay.
And it's definitely not a reason to blow off college. I mean, I've been here 3 years and I'm doing fine. It's just part of picking the right college for you.
Well, what about here? I mean, you did say it was good for you.
Yeah, I do like it here. And they do a pretty good job. But I'm not a recruiter for state. You really do have to pick the one that's right for you. Just before you say yes, make sure that you investigate their accommodations. You know, check out their website, ask a few questions while you're on campus. You can get a pretty good sense of what they can do that way.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Anytime.
Catch you later.
See ya.
The one thing that I really took away from this, and my husband and I were arguing about it over dinner the other night, truly, was that even if your child, let's say, applies to college and decides to attend or two-year school or trade school. And they go to the, not the DSO, but now the accessibility office.
Accessibility
They
office.
just changed that.
Again, like this is a third change, so just get used to it.
Let's say year one, they go and they qualify and they get a list of accommodations, or this is what they get to have or do. One of them is transcribing. They need transcribing. That's excellent. They need that. But then they go back year two and they say, well, really sorry, but we don't have a transcriber anymore. So we're not gonna be able to provide that accommodation. And that's a real thing. Or you might say, you know, I really like this university and they're giving me a scholarship for a certain portion, or they've got this track I really like for the degree, but they've let me know that my needs can't be met there. Like they can't provide these accommodations. So then what do I do? You know, then what are my options? So that's why when we talk about even elementary, middle, and high school, early high school, it's really important that you really reflect on what their true needs are, so that way they can have more options and not have to worry about that once they get into higher education. So,
And I'll add to that too, while she's looking for a clicker. These accommodations they don't go backwards. So if your student enrolls, they need to go to the accessibility office upon enrollment so that they can help them find classes and get those accommodations set up. Because if they go to them halfway through the semester and finally decide to go get those accommodations, they don't backdate it. Like they don't go backwards. It doesn't start until the next semester. And so that whole semester they're going to be without. So it's really important that one of their first steps after submitting their application is to go to that office. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but while you were finding your clicker.
There's my, yeah, I was working. Okay, so these are just some of the reflections. What we're gonna do now is move into some time for you to evaluate some things and access some resources. So before we do that, wrap this up, and then our next piece is gonna talk about accommodations more specifically about what's going on now for your student. Any questions or comments before we kind of transition out of this section? Reflections, comments, aha moments.
When your kids are young, it's good to help them advocate for themselves. I love that. And of course, when they're ready. But how do we learn how to do that in parents that are not as versed as you?
Oh, no, fine. Well, so my son had in second grade, well, it started in kindergarten. And then COVID hit, and then he went into first grade, not even knowing how to read. Went into second grade, had a really challenging teacher that was very compliance-based and didn't really mesh with him. My daughter also had some similar issues. And so I'd already gone through it a little bit with her. And yes, I did have a special education background, but my son couldn't even read this time last year, and I didn't even know it. So just because you have that background doesn't mean, I had a lot of mom guilt about that, but we're working through it. But at the end of the day, I'm very open and honest with my kids. And I tell them, this was a certain situation, if you don't like your teacher, if your teacher is not helping you, you need to go tell your teacher, why aren't you helping me? I need help. I mean, I'm very upfront with my kids because out of my own life experience, and having to I had a learning disability, and having to figure things out on my own, it took me twice as long. I mean, it was very frustrating as a child. And so I don't want them to go through that. And so I'm teaching them from a very early age, this is how you advocate for yourself. Same thing, not an exact scenario, but like my daughter, she's in 5th grade. There are mean girls in 5th grade, really mean girls. She got cornered in the restroom the first week of school. I gave her the right words to say and the right actions to do. And we even practiced it at home. So role modeling. So just like a teacher would do, a teacher will do like I do. This is what you do. I'm teaching you how to do this. Now we're going to do it together. We're going to practice this together. We're going to role play it. How do you ask for something, even in like a kindergarten, first or second grade classroom? And then I want you to show me, go get your brother and sister, or go get a play toy and show me, let's do this together. I like some play therapy. So, but it's giving them real words. Don't give them silly words.
My daughter is in fourth grade. Sometimes I have to give her a note for her to be holding and get to school, like ask teacher about homework, because she won't ask.
No, and that's the thing, a lot of kids won't ask.
Yeah.
They won't. In fact, my third grade son's goal is literally ask for help when you need it. He won't, he'll shut down. He gets,
Yeah, that's my daughter.
but also I knew my daughter needed accommodations that she wasn't getting in class. So I printed them and made her an accommodation binder, which got thrown away every week by her teacher. So every week I made another one. And I said, Stella, when you're learning multiplication, you need to pull out your multiplication chart. I bet I printed that thing 100 times in third grade. But it's what she needed, even though the teacher refused to do it. And now she's doing great, because that was a couple of years ago. But just also giving them you give them the accommodations at home. You do oral admin for them, you read aloud, you highlight text, you use manipulatives, and you count things out and show them. Make them a little box to take to school.
For parents that have zero teaching experience, we don't even know what those are. You know what I mean?
Well, if your child comes home and they're doing homework,
Yeah.
and you see them struggling, sit there and think, what are they struggling with?
Okay.
How can I help this? So if not, find someone on the campus.
Yeah. Okay.
And ask them, yeah.
I get it.
Okay, I'm gonna set a timer if you're here on your desk, you're gonna have this resource right here. These are for parent resources here. On the green, it's for students. So you can give this to your child and they can QR code it. The student things are truly student-based for them to read, to do, access. The parent side is truly for the parent. All the things that you might need to know, advocate, all those things. So set a timer, just take some time, QR code these, the links all work, I've checked them. But definitely look at these real quickly, maybe make some notes, ask some questions, and then we're gonna transition into accommodation. And then if you're online, I'm gonna leave the student resources up for the first few minutes, and then I'm gonna switch to the timer.
Oh, there is a timer.
There is a timer.
I didn't see the timer. It
It's
was
an
hiding.
accommodation.
It was hiding.
There you go.
Let me turn this down to here.
And I have extra paper too, so y'all can But also,
It's not as wild as some of these others, is it?
Okay. Let's visit after we on. Keep that question for you. And the hard.
you take her. And see, that's the thing, that's the next step. Is getting her excited about that and that, so she can connect why I have to do this today to get to where I want to be.
Right.
So that's a lot of it too. We're talking about motivating and how do we motivate our kids to see to the future, and how do we motivate our kids to want to be successful? Because so many times our students have not been successful, that they're just used to failure, and that's where I'm at. And we have to show them that that's not what life is. Like, there's so much more past that. So that was a really great conversation. Okay, accommodations. So the less accommodations now, the easier transition later. This applies even elementary, into intermediate, into middle, into high school. Like I said, the ultimate goal for me when my daughter was in education was that by the time she graduated from 4th grade, was going into intermediate school, that she was not in special education anymore. Now, she still needed accommodations, absolutely. But I wanted her to learn to be self-reliant and how that might look for her. Some kiddos may not be there until they're going into 7th grade. Some kiddos may not be there until they're going into 9th grade. This was just my daughter. My youngest son, I think that's going to be a bit more of a challenge for. He has dyslexia. Like I said, he is just still learning how to read. And so I don't envision the next 2 years him being able to be dismissed and probably graduate from the dyslexia program. It will probably carry on into 5th and 6th grade. But that is something, again, that we're going to talk about now is what are the accommodations that our children have and what is considered reasonable, okay? Because that's what we're looking at as we're moving ahead, not just in college, but also when talking about the workforce. Whether they're like going in at age 15, 16 for their first job, or if they are looking at graduation and going into the workforce, what would that look like? These are just some, I've got just a couple slides of some examples. And then we've got a little activity here to go over some things. We have auditory and physical supports. And these are things that may be going on now for your student that you're aware of or that you're not aware of, or things that you were actually doing for your child by accommodating them at home. And this is okay. This is totally fine. But start thinking of, okay, at home, like my kids walk in, they leave things everywhere. I become exhausted and frustrated because all I do is pick the house up and put their stuff away. And eventually I get to the point where I get a trash bag and then they know that they better start putting their things away because I start putting it in the trash bag. And then it goes on the front porch and I call the Goodwill to come pick it up. And I had to do that a couple times, but they still do it. They still put their stuff everywhere. And then I still accommodate them and like pick their things up. Okay. So, but again, that's just how at home can we make sure that we're also not over accommodating them, teaching them some things. Environmental supports and content area supports. Provide timers. How many timers have we had today? How many of you cook or bake something and turn a timer on? Because, I can't remember like all that time. Content areas, providing frequent feedback. That's one thing that you can start doing at home for a lot of your kids that need some motivation, is that immediate feedback. And doing it in a positive way, saying, let's say they do one little thing, like they put their shoes on. Oh my gosh, great job putting on your shoes. Thank you so much for doing that. It could just be a little thing, like just the smallest of things. But anyway, so those are some, again, supports they may or may not be getting in environmental and content areas. These are what I would consider reasonable. I mean, these are not excessive accommodations. Okay, so what you have in front of you, you have the Pacer Center guide. Again, the Pacer Center is actually a great website to go to just in general. They have all kinds of resources and it's all research based, which I'm really into because I'm the kind of person who I never disliked because that's the way it is, because that's what they say, that's what this is. I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to advocate for myself, I'm going to have a documented research-based information to back it up so I know I'm right. And you can question it all you want, but I know I'm right. And that's something for your students, for your children, that is really important, no matter what grade they're in, is for them to be able to say that. So anyway, so these are some reasonable accommodations. There's a lot of them. Your students may have some now. They may not. There might be some in here that you're like, this could be a really great accommodation for them. Okay. Next, what I want you to do, and this is actually, I want y'all to do this. I know your kids aren't here, but it might be something for you to do with your child, with your student. This is an accommodation rating scale. Amy actually gave me this. But basically what it is you're going to look at the accommodation that they have, if they're using, and rate it. Like, how much are they using it? Do you really need that? What if you didn't have it? What would that look like? And how can we work backwards to take that accommodation away. Get your kids involved at 4th grade, at 3rd grade, at 1st grade, because teaching them now these accommodations, they can learn to accommodate themselves and never tell anyone. I accommodate myself all the time. I mean, I put reminders everywhere. I write my list out for the day. You should see my calendar, like on my phone. Like I tell myself to do stuff all day long. You know, but it's like, how do we start teaching them that now when they're in elementary school? So that when they are getting out into the workforce or out into education, they truly do know what they need and what they don't need. Okay.
Jessica,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
are people online? Are these clickable or how can
Yes.
they get to these?
I'm going to get you the link in just a second. I was trying to pull it up earlier, but I couldn't.
I was just curious for them.
So I'm going to provide these links for them. At this point, we have like 5 minutes left. So you can do this activity now. We could do Q&A, or whatever you guys would want. You know, if there's something we didn't touch on, I know originally we talked about inclusion, but if there's anything that you want to touch on in that realm, we can also discuss too. So yeah, any thoughts? Yes.
Is it appropriate to meet informally with either the special ed teacher at school and explore, say, the accommodations and I mean, I'm almost afraid to suggest I want to reduce her accommodations, but
Yeah.
I understand the importance of it.
I think what you can do, I call it a PLCing a student. It's a PLC is a professional learning community. It's something that a lot of campuses have and that they do. They have a PLC type culture. That means that their departments or their grade levels are meeting together, like let's say every week. And what they do is they look at a student and they look at that student's data to see if they're being successful. So I would say it'd be very reasonable to want to meet with the gen ed and the sped teacher and say, here are these 2 documents I got from Region 10. Here's my child's accommodation list. Here's their grades. Or here's some areas I see that they're struggling. Can we sit down and just discuss, do they need these accommodations? What are, discuss what that might look like and let them know. I don't want to make any decisions today because that would say ARD. I don't want to make any decisions. I just want to find out what's working and what's not working. If we find things that are not working and we want to change that, then we would have the ARD meeting. But I think that would be perfect because you could even say, well, how is she doing? If this is her accommodation, is she? I don't feel like she's using it. Can you help me help her? Like learn how to use it? I think that's perfectly fine.
What's the name of this document?
It is the accommodation rubric self check.
You just Google that, it'll pop up.
Yes, it will. In fact, I have it in an email. Yeah.
I just asked Jim and he can send out the PowerPoint
Oh,
to
perfect.
everybody. So if we want to just kind of remember that you want to include the document.
Yes. Then we can send that out and I've got it in my email that I can.
And Jessica, if you share it with me, I can put it in the chat right now. And then Jim said that, so I think he has a master list of everybody that had registered. He's gonna send out an email later that has all of the presentations from today.
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
Missing something. This is the.
It's just the research behind accommodations and the purpose behind them and all of that kind of stuff. This is what you use, like, say your student has oral, and it's probably an easy one, but you would just say, does the student use it? Okay, so then and if he doesn't use it, then you go over here, then we need to observe the student and find out why he's not using it. If he's using it sporadically, then we need to encourage them to use it more, basically. So I wish they would have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They didn't. So 0 is 1, 1 is 2, 2 is, okay.
Got
You see it?
Yeah.
And then are they being, is it effective, basically? And it's not effective. It's kind of working. It's getting us there, or yeah, it's really working for us. And so is it stigmatizing? Because that matters too, you know? And so you can look and see, does it call attention to the student? Is this something that he really needs or doesn't really need?
Yeah, like headphones. He really needs it, but he looks different and he doesn't want to use it. He doesn't want to be different.
So can we do earplugs?
Yeah.
You know, because it would be less obvious.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what you can look at. Is there something else that we could switch it out to be?
Yeah.
There may or may not be something. Every kid runs around with AirPods in their ears, so I'm sure that earplugs would look less.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble finding that link for the, what's up here now. I'm gonna keep searching for it. But I am gonna forward this up real quick for you guys to Google and look at. This is a guide, like a book study that I put on here.
A lot of
Nope, not that one. Okay, this guide right here, Rethinking College, if you Google this right here, this is actually like a 30-minute video that starts elementary and goes all the way through graduation. This is a study guide that you, with your child, do as you're watching the video. I didn't put it on here because it's like, that's like, it would take forever to go through that. And you need to have your student with you to do that. But if you're looking for something to help guide you in open conversation with your child or student, this would be great. It's like a family book study. You can break it up, you know, do it over the next month or so. Okay, I'm still trying to find that link. Sorry.
I found the link to this one, to the Rethinking College, not to your PowerPoint, but to Rethinking College, and just put it in the chat.
The Rethink College also, just in case you have a student with an intellectual disability, there are programs out there for those students. And so college is for everyone. And so we have some here in North Texas, and we have some in Central Texas. UNT has a program called Elevar, and it's only accepting like 12 students a semester. So I mean, it's a competitive thing. So the more you have them working on their accommodations and speaking up for their needs early, the more likely they are to get into a program like that. But UNT Elevar has one. There's one in Houston that's A&M Paths. Or Aggie Achieve. They have E4 Texas at UT. Green Oak School in Arlington has something at the Arlington Baptist College there. So there are some programs out there, and we're not just talking about our typical college student. We're talking, this can be the expectation for all, and these programs are growing. And so there will be more. If you have elementary, middle school age kids, there's going to be an opportunity. There are going to be even more opportunities by the time they get there. Okay. But in order for them to be successful, teaching them those self-determination skills is critical. It just is. And we can talk about that more this afternoon about some ways you can do that. I'll kind of take some time and pop over to some resources for you guys. It's not built into my PowerPoint, but we can do that. So while she was looking for the link. Did you find it?
Well, no, Sandy just sent me the document. I don't have the link, so I'm trying to find her email, and I can't find her email. Back up here to this video.
We'll get it to the online people. I'm sorry. We'll get it to the.
a lot of high school teachers tell a lot of
via Jim.
students with
Okay, he'll send it out with her PowerPoint.
that they can't go to college because
No,
they
wrong
have
one.
one, which is not true because we're people too.
I've always wanted to go to college ever since I was in high school. And after we had the interview, I was accepted. That changed my whole life forever.
So I found out teachers and the students, like, they've been really amazing here.
Personalize and design classes to fit the students' needs.
The students persevere through challenges. We're really challenging them academically. For a lot of them, much more than they ever have been before.
I feel really independent because I have the responsibilities of living on my own.
I'm feeling good to get away from my parents.
Students are living and hanging out amongst their peers. We have students in everything from Greek life to doing club sports. That's exactly what inclusion is about.
I was more worried about me. Being at home by myself, they have the support system if I needed it.
College is a good thing to do, to make friends, to be independent. My whole family went to college and they want me to go to college.
But we have several students doing an internship or job placement, so not just a grocery store.
My goal for Casey is for her to live independently and have a job that she loves.
My dream is to work at Google.
I want to go into healthcare.
Be a teacher and be around kids.
There isn't a roadblock that I see out there for a student who truly wants to go to college.
Don't be afraid.
And work hard. Work really hard.
Oh yeah.
So that was for, I couldn't. type it
Before
in
we
my
get
phone.
more into the
I'm sorry. That was for. College. It's not on there. There you go. There are some colleges, and universities, associate degree path, things like that, they do offer really great support. So I don't want to make it sound like no college or university is going to be supportive. But there are those that specifically have really great programs. I sent you that link.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, email it to you.
Okay, perfect. So for this